And this was over $100,000 that you were able to pay off in 3 years.
That's correct.
Wow, that's impressive.
Stop going from paycheck to paycheck and start living your dreams.
That sounds so great to me. Honestly, sometimes money making can feel like it's so difficult, or if you want more of it, it can feel impossible. So tell us more. How do you make it simple?
Hi, I'm Yegi. I'm an entrepreneur and success coach who wants it all. Family, luxury, career, and the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And I'll do whatever it takes to get there. I created the Yegi Project to document my journey and inspire others to do the same. My mission is to change the world by influencing and leading others to do what they love and live fulfilled lives.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Yegi Project. Today's honored guest is Veronica Deraleau, and she is going to give us her backstory of who she is and what does she do today.
So nice to meet you, Yegi. So today I'm here. I'm a financial coach and author of the book Making Money is Simple. I'm also an opera singer, and during the day, I'm a senior manager at a fintech company as well.
Awesome. What a well-rounded way to live your life. I'm sure it offers a lot of satisfaction to have the creative side with the opera and then play around with money and numbers as your career. Is the opera thing for fun, or is it your main career?
Yeah, so I would say it's definitely semi-professional. I have maintained an opera career for the past 18 years, and it's kind of always been a dual career. I did do in school economics and also music, and then I did my MBA as well as a master's in voice performance.
Wow, so you've always known you have love for both sides. That's beautiful. Well, take us back. How did you even get into the opera, and how did you even sorry, let me ask that again. How did you even get into opera singing? Because it is such a specific niche. And also, how did you come up with writing a book about money?
Absolutely. I talk about the sort of intersection of these two in the book, so that'll be interesting for your listeners. But I always knew I wanted to be a singer. I actually started playing violin when I was young, and I sang at church, and then in high school became a little more serious about the singing. But I always had the musician background and sang, and then got serious about it when I got to college. I have a single immigrant mother from the Philippines who told me, hey, I don't think that you should just do music.
Yes.
So she was very practical, and I had taken this economics class in my senior year of high school and was pretty interested in the social application of economics. So found that super interesting and did that as part of my dual degree in college. And then I was able to get into commercial business out of college and support myself, and wanted to be a singer, and was able to take this job that was flexible and was 1099. So was able to sort of be an independent contractor on both sides and kind of be a little more independent that way. And then in the book, it talks about how I was kind of like, I felt like I was kind of not progressing as I would want to on either side. And so later in my 20s, I went back to school, did my MBA, got a start in commercial real estate. And I had graduated with these 2 masters and had 6 figures of debt. And and they always tell creatives that like debt is the worst thing that you can have. Like you can't live your dreams with debt hanging over you.
Even student loans, because I know there's a misconception, and it's just two ways of thinking about it. People either go full force, doesn't matter how much it costs. If it's education, it's worth it. We don't think of it as bad debt, for example. What was your experience with that? Because now you're out of school, you have these dual degrees, you have your master's, but you're over 100K in debt.
Yeah, I just wanted to get rid of it as soon as possible. I was like, I cannot imagine having this $1,000+ payment. And, you know, I had graduated with an MBA and transitioned industries in the commercial side from energy to real estate. And so I had an entry-level job, and I was just like, I don't see how I can possibly.
And I think that happens for most people out of school.
That's right. That's
It's
right.
like
And
it's a
so
hard slap in the face. Like, hey, we're not making as much money as we thought we would, but I have a master's degree.
yep, that's right. That is how it is early on. And I was just like so motivated to get out of debt. And I was dating my now husband, Mike, and we wanted to like get married and buy a home and like do all the things. So I was really motivated by that. And I had a very unique experience working with the commercial real estate company where we were doing these multi-million dollar property budgets. And I thought I had been budgeting. I was using Excel. I was like putting my income in there, I was putting my expenses in there. But what I didn't realize when I got to the commercial real estate company was that you can actually be strategic and have the end goal in mind and work your way backwards and reverse engineer how to make outcomes happen.
Far in advance to your goal are we talking about? Like 5 years down the line, or what? How in advance are we planning?
Yeah, so I would say you could do what I've seen is like 3, 5, 10, 20 years out. And like, the further
Wow,
along,
okay.
then you
Just
can't
to like
really,
really
you're
see the
making
big
guesses.
picture, yeah.
But you can plan pretty well in a 1 to 3 year outlook, backtracking your goals and putting strategic plans in place and then making the action steps to get that executed. So that was the piece that like really unlocked what true strategic budgeting is.
Are we delusional most of the time when we're just budgeting on the monthly basis?
Well, I mean, it is by definition paycheck to paycheck if
Yeah.
you're just doing month to month, right? So I was like, wow, this is literally paycheck to paycheck. There was actually no plan, like no executable plan how to pay off this debt or grow my money or start investing. And so that was so eye-opening working with these high net worth individuals in that job.
And did that company train you in this area for you to work with the high net worth individuals?
So that's what I went back to get my MBA for I knew I wanted to go into real estate. I had worked with commercial real estate developers through the energy company and I found that fascinating. So I went back to school, got my MBA. You don't need to get an MBA, by the way. You can get different online things these days, no problem. But I did that and then was able to get my foot in the door at a commercial real estate company. And I got the on the ground training, if you know what I mean. Like the school piece, it just teaches you sort of abstract
Theories.
and then you get the real training on the job. And hopefully at school you have professors that are actively working in the industry that you're looking to be in. But that's where it's just, my mind shifted and I was able to finally apply that to personal finance, pay off the debt with a starting salary in 3 years.
Wow. And this was over $100,000 that you were able to pay off in 3 years.
That's correct.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay, well, let's dive in since the topic came up. Tell us more about your book, the title, and what are the 5 key takeaways the readers can learn from the book if they were to pick it up today.
Sure. Okay, so the book is called Making Money is Simple. Stop going from paycheck to paycheck and start living your dreams.
That sounds so great to me. Honestly, sometimes with money making can feel like it's so difficult, or if you want more of it, it can feel impossible. So tell us more. How do you make it simple?
Okay, so the book goes through my ARIA money model and so ties in the music a little bit. An ARIA is an opera song. And so I would say to shape up that framework, the takeaways, you could use the ARIA, which is an acronym. So A is for awaken. That's realizing that there's a problem in the first place and being willing to take your head out of the sand and actually face the problem. So that's awaken.
Would that be in your example, realizing that, hey, I have this extra 1,000 or plus payment I need to pay monthly?
Yes, definitely. It was when I graduated in 2017, I knew my student loans were going to be due in like the 6 months. I was like, holy crap. So that was definitely a rude awakening. Yeah, it was a rude awakening for sure. And, just that I had all these shame that I felt like I was going to be the one holding our family back from progressing. So I was super motivated to figure it out, basically. So that's awaken. Then R is for reframing. I find that people can't move forward when they're not willing to get to a point of acceptance of where they are today.
Yeah,
And
we
like,
like to pretend the problem doesn't exist or it's better
absolutely.
or worse. Sometimes we assume it's worse than it is
That
unless
is so
we sit
true.
down and, figure it out.
That is absolutely true. Yeah. Sometimes I'm meeting with prospects and they're, super excited to see actually, I think you can pay this off really quickly. And they're like, what? I didn't even know. So sometimes people do build it up in their minds that it's way worse of a problem and it actually is more actionable than they think. So that's great. Yes, and then in the book, every letter has a corresponding story from my life, so they get to know quite a bit about me. So for the reframing, I talk about the story from my childhood about how the first time I ever had a sleepover, I got a peek into this. I was like, I was already a teenager. I was like headed into high school, and I got a peek to see how other people lived, and I realized that, oh my gosh, my mom is still living like she's in a third world country. I had no idea that I was living so
Oh.
differently from people around
Yeah, you
me.
don't know what you don't know until it's introduced to you. That's why I love talking and having these conversations because it triggers people to think bigger or to change their frame of thinking.
Yes, absolutely. So I've had experiences like that throughout my life. Like you said, I love the way you put it, where you just don't know what you don't know. And until you see it, you don't even know sometimes that these things exist.
Yeah, because that's your normal. I have a funny story about that. Like as a kid growing up, I have very crooked pinkies. Like they look like they're broken and they're both like that. But I just thought that's the norm. Like that's what it is. That's what pinkies look like. So I remember in high school again, I was probably in ninth grade and somebody pointed out, oh, like what's wrong with your pinkies? Did you break them? And that's when they pointed, I was like, no, like that's how everybody's pinkies are. But you see, like I just thought that's how it is because that's all I've seen on my hands. And I guess I hadn't even paid attention to other people's pinkies specifically. So it's really crazy, like to know that, hey, our truth may really not be that true.
That's so true. Yeah. Oh, that's a funny, very physical example in your face. So yeah, discovered that like I went into the house and I saw a running shower head, and my mom had only up to that point like ever done basin baths, and
Okay.
I was like, oh my God,
And
like
what year was this?
there's like water coming out of the shower. Yeah, yeah. And then I go home and I'm like, "Oh my God, this turns on, like water comes out of it." And she was like, "What are you doing? Why are you wasting water?" And
Yeah.
so there are things that just are taken for granted today in society as needs. And it doesn't even occur to people like, actually, maybe you're not even using that thing and like maybe you don't need it, or maybe you just assumed that you needed it and actually you don't need to pay for it. And there's alternatives that you can look into. So just that's the reframing portion, is maybe there's this whole thing out here that you have never even considered to try that can really change the way that you manage your money. And then, working at the commercial real estate firm, same thing. I hadn't even considered managing money in a very strategic way, in a way that you can actually forecast the outcome in advance.
Do you have an example for us?
Of
Forecasting in advance.
Absolutely. So, like with my own debt, I said my initial goal was to pay off the debt before in 5 years. So I was like, okay, now knowing what I know, I can actually just go ahead and like divide that up. What would the extra cash flow that I would need to come up to be able to pay down the principal payments? And then, okay, let me take a look at my income and my expenses. And how can I strategically make that cash flow happen? Like it's got to be one of those two things, right? So you have to start getting creative with things. And this is what I help people
Yeah,
with.
you can either save or cut down somewhere to save money to pay the debt, or you have to earn more money to pay the debt. Logically,
That's
it
right.
seems simple.
It seems simple, but it's like giving people outside of the box ideas,
Hmm.
how to make that happen in a way that's sustainable, because you're having to do it for years sometimes when you're paying off the debt. But there are different creative things that you can do. So I did a mix of both.
so sorry to cut you off, but have you seen a pattern with people that our listeners can benefit from as far as the creative ways of paying down debt? Because I know a lot of people, I don't have statistics, but I know a lot of people do have debt. If it's school debt, credit card debt, house, depending on the individual, and I'm sure it could be case by case if we're getting creative. But have you seen any sort of a pattern with working with different people of the creative things they can try or consider to do in order to pay down their debt?
Yeah, for sure. So with income, sometimes they're taking home a huge like tax refund. So that means that there is money that there's actively coming out of their paycheck that doesn't need to. So that's like pretty easy. Low-hanging fruit. There's creative side hustles you could do, selling stuff that you're not even using around the house, like equipment, or my husband sold like boats, gym equipment that they're not using, like big machines or
Yeah.
extra cars that they're not using, huge things, right? There's renegotiating contracts. It's so boring that no one looks into it, but it's like really actionable where you can get comparison for the huge ticket items like annual insurance or your recurring phone bills or looking at your recurring subscriptions. So those items, like just renegotiating all the contracts for the household, getting creative with that. And you can save a lot of money that way. Like I've had clients that are like, oh my God, I just made one phone call and now my insurance is in half. Or I just checked two other vendors for the phone and I'm like, hey, I think that can be lower. And they're like, oh my God, I just cut my bill in half forever. Like that's
Yeah, again,
incredible.
goes back to we just get comfortable with the way things
Yes.
are and we don't double check after a while. We just stick to it and we think, okay, that's what it is.
Absolutely. And that's what I learned in asset management was you're like looking at every single line item, like trying to uncover where the money
Yeah.
is because people just get comfortable and they just take it for granted. And of course they raise it every year and they don't bother checking back like, hey, can you get me a better deal? So, so just looking at
That's a
renegotiating
big one.
contracts. Yep, that's a big one. And then I would say groceries is a huge one. That's usually like a very actionable one where you
Is
can
it?
get creative. Yeah, because it's a big item and it's actually within our control. So that's one that if you need to tighten back on, that you can actually do it if you get creative. Like can we cook things in bulk? If you eat out a lot, can you switch to a home delivery kit that's cheaper per meal? Can I liked when my husband and I were really sticking to a budget, we would have like the same go-to meals. And he's a big hunter, so like we could save on meat and stuff like that and fishing and stuff. So there are different ways that you can look at reducing the grocery
I think
line
even
item.
just the idea of the food, groceries, that category of feeding yourself, if it's buying the groceries, eating out, meal prepping, all that stuff that you mentioned, I think that's really good to mention for people to consider because sometimes we forget about that part. It's like, oh, it's a necessity to
Right,
live,
exactly.
or I work, I have to get
I
lunch or I
have
have to get my
to.
coffee in the morning. But if
Right.
we really sit down and get creative, I'm sure there are ways that we can be better about it. And I guess sometimes for the convenience aspect of it in today's world, it's hard to try to commit to budgeting, when it comes to groceries, food, that area of life. But with planning ahead, I could see that being more attainable. Like for me, even I'm like, okay, I have this goal of buying, let's say, my next house. Now, normally I would hate to budget anything that comes with food. We love food in our family. That's not a place we would ever cut down on. But then now looking back, it's like, okay, well, if I really want this house in, let's like the next 2 years, maybe now if I see the big picture, okay, it's worth it. Maybe just for 3 years, I can cut down on, the way we do our food or groceries.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's another one. And then I would say like kids stuff. You can get like pretty creative, right?
I
With
laugh because I know I
your life.
spend way more money than I should when it comes to kids
Yes,
toys.
absolutely. I just saw this. One of my friends posted her kiddo with a big wooden spoon, and she was like, "This is a hot tip for new moms. Like, don't even buy a toy, just give them the wooden spoon." He's like obsessed with it.
It's definitely true. They don't care. They just want to play with you specifically.
Yeah, yeah. So there's like all sorts of no buy like Facebook groups and just share like community sharing things that can be done. There's lots of creative things that can be done with like kids stuff and kids activities. So those are some big items where you could really look at it again.
Awesome. Now, moving on to getting to know you a little bit more going. Actually, I don't think we completed the
I don't think we
acronym.
completed it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
let's
just
go
to
back
hit
to
those
that.
quickly. Yes,
Yes.
so the I is setting the intention. So once you've awakened, you've reframed your mind to get a little creative and rethink things, then you can set what is that intention for your money that you want to align your actions with. So for you, it's we want to save for this house. So that's now the intention that you're setting out toward. And then A is finally taking action. But it's really hard. You mentioned this before, but I see a lot of resistance in that A and the R, where people have to consistently go back to going from scarcity mindset to how can we be creative and actually align with the new intention and get ourselves out of these old habits. So that's the ARIA money man.
Now, you mentioned habits. Habits is a great and horrible topic for me because certain habits that come easy and natural, it's great. It all works and it flows. Forming new habits, especially after a certain age or when we're adults, it's very difficult. Kind of, you can't teach old dog new tricks. So I feel like that's very true unless you really want to make that change. What advice do you have in regards to forming healthier habits as far as spending money, budgeting, to get to our intentions?
So yeah, one is understanding the ARIA money model and understanding that there is mental resistance there. So, and then quickly reframing that thought. So I go into my coaching, I talk about money triggers. So understanding where are those triggers coming from and fundamentally understanding them. So for some people, it maybe it's impulses and luxury, maybe it's something deeper. Maybe it's I can't say no to my kids. I just want to give them everything. That's a tough one. Or, generosity with family members. That can be a tough one. So it's deeply, or in some cases, if they had an upbringing where they were in poverty, maybe it's undoing that like survival mindset. So it's deeply understanding why we do what we do. And then you can start to action off of that. And then tactically speaking, I like to do quick wins. So I come up with all of these ideas, like looking at the budget. How can we increase the top line? How can we go through the expenses and like strategically look at each line item? And then I have this big list of things, and that's overwhelming. So I like to start with what is the highest leverage activity that you can do? And I'll usually guide them towards that. So if it's a quick win that they can do in a week, I have like project management software. So I sort of am like a project manager and a financial coach, and maybe throw a little therapy in there too. But I would say those are the two things. So on the mindset side, understanding deeply what causes us to overspend so that we can actually be aware of it when it happens and then reframe that towards the new intention. So from the mindset side, and then it's the tactical stuff.
Yeah, so I do feel like we do have to go a little bit and do the inner work to figure out that piece of it. Now, would you say then money has a certain type of mentality that we need to adapt in order to be successful with it? Because you talk about the all in your model. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, so I think it's very hard, like I said, when the resistance is coming from oneself. Like they want to do this thing, but then when I press pause and ask them to, hey, here's how you can execute on this. Like, here's the plan, but are you willing to do the plan? Because I can't do it for you, right? So when there's that resistance, you really have to get to the bottom of it. And sadly, sometimes people just aren't willing, and they kind of have to crash and burn
Yeah, before they can
commit to it. Yeah. So sometimes I've seen that, it's been difficult as a coach because you just want to help everyone. But if people aren't willing to do the work, you can't want it more than they want it for themselves. Yeah.
Now, as far as creating a plan, what are like some common areas that you get stuck in? So if somebody you really look at their spending, the income that's coming in and their intention or their goal, and you were like, okay, like something's really off here and it's not realistic to meet this intention or this goal. How do you kind of replan, or how do you break that news to your clients that, hey, maybe you need to, I don't know, make a dramatic change as far as get a new job, or what else can people do if they're really are in it, they're really money stuck?
Yeah, I would say it gets to that point when people's debt just, even if I was to slash everything, that we can possibly slash within, in a minimum working budget, if the debt has just gotten so out of control that it exceeds any cash flow, then they have to do something drastic. So that's got to be like, let's look at the housing, right? Like, can you live with someone? Like, do you have parents that you can move in?
The bigger cost items.
Yes. So that's when the debt starts to get out of control to where there's just nothing left to cut, and then you're still underwater. It's like, we need to look at some fundamental items. Is there someone that you can move in with? Like, how can we get ahead of that? Because that's just like a ticking timeline, where it's like, let's get ahead of that before you're forced into very difficult decisions. Like, let's get ahead of it.
Okay.
I would say that also happens. I've seen that happen, very practically speaking, when someone is supporting multiple generations, but they're not considering everybody's income. So sometimes they're just like, and this happens, Yegi, with a lot of mothers, frankly, where they just take on this an intense burden. Like, maybe they're caring for adult parents, and then they also have young kids, and they're only considering their own income.
I see.
Like, no one else is contributing to that equation. Then it's a very difficult situation. I start, trying to
how,
get
like,
to
other people can help.
Yeah, like, okay, if they have Social Security, or if you can have like caretaker income, like, is there something that is available to you that you're just not considering?
I see.
So those are two scenarios.
Wonderful. Now, just some fun questions I like to ask my guests. If there was one thing you can change in the world with a magic wand, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
It's in a fun way. Why is it that everything that tastes good is bad for you?
True. My two favorite things is bread and sugar. So, and I know they're both not the best for you. Awesome. How about top 3 lessons you've learned in your personal life?
Gosh, okay. So I would say stress and time management are top 2. Because then once you get those under control, that leads to health. That leads to being able to do stretch goals. I guess third, I'll say relationships. So like, monitor stress, time management, and your relationships. Those just add to overall well-being.
So I feel like if you have those things under control, everything else should be easier, no matter how difficult.
Exactly. Yeah.
What's your favorite thing, or how do you manage your time? What does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so I actually went through a time audit earlier this year because I was feeling very underwater with my time, and that was very eye-opening.
How do you do your time audits?
So I went through this exercise. I was like, something has got to give, because I'm managing a lot. I'm overwhelmed. So I outlined what would be my ideal day look like, and I outlined that. And then I said, okay, what is realistically happening? And I outlined that, and I compared the two, and I was like, oh, okay.
Here are the gaps. Here are the gaps.
Well, here are the gaps, and here's what's got to change. And some practical things that came out of that was I was waking up too late because I was too tired. I was going to bed too late, and then I would wake up tired, and I wouldn't be able to do a workout, and then I would be groggy the rest of the day. So fixing some of those mechanics, and then frankly cutting things strategically that I don't need to be saying yes to. So I looked at my current commitments at the time and was like, okay, what are the ones that I actually want to say yes to, and what are the ones I'm like begrudgingly saying yes
Yes.
to that need to be cut at this point?
Yeah, I feel like just even with fun things and things that you want to do with friends and family and kids and, everybody else is a tough one because you think you're so busy, you're so tired, and you have to do these things, even going to a birthday party. But in reality, is if you were to cut some of those commitments, you would feel much better overall. People would understand, because we're all human and we're all trying to survive and, be as healthy and alive as possible. And honestly, it's difficult. Easy in practice, but unless you're aware of it and you do take the time, maybe weekly or monthly, and cross some things off of your calendar, you end up feeling overwhelmed. Like even today, it's so tempting. Randomly, my girlfriend texted like our girl group text, like, hey, who's free? Who wants to do a lunch today? And it's so tempting. Like, yeah, I'll do it because it's something fun. But then I'm like, okay, realistically, what else do I have to get done today? Am I going to be making my day way tighter than it needs to be if I commit to this lunch, for example? So I think just saying no is also really important to practice saying no to things to yourself, even if you want to do them. Think it through and be like, okay, but if I say yes to myself for this lunch, what does my day look like? Am I going to be cutting it too close between meetings or between picking up my kids and having like a minute to breathe, for example?
Yeah, definitely. And actually planning in times you have to plan them, fun, rest, plan for planning. So I did that like gap analysis, and then I applied that to I do now a monthly calendar. So I was like, what are the things I want to accomplish? And then I sort of map it out in my calendar, and sometimes it needs to change, but I kind of stick with that. And then on a daily basis, I would say a basic day is workout in the morning, get ready, and I have my fintech job during the day, and then I carve out family time after work. My husband and I always do a long walk with our dogs, and we do dinner. And then at night, I'm doing a couple hours of either music rehearsal or business planning.
Awesome, awesome. Now, as far as being successful, what is the top 3 things that you need to eliminate in your life? Maybe top 3 bad habits. I think that's a better way of asking the question.
Top 3 bad habits, financially speaking, or just in life?
Financially, since that's your area.
So it's easy to say, it sounds so simple, but overspending, living beyond your means, right, is going from that being a cliche saying to actually putting it on paper. Like, is the mathing as far as my budget goes? And okay, so that's one, like living within your means, being able to make hard decisions. So sometimes people just don't have the will. Even if I show them the way, they have to have the will, and they have to be able to make very difficult decisions. And I just had a post about that on Instagram where it's like, that's a big business takeaway. Like I've seen this over the last many business cycles, 15 years of ups and downs in the economy, is people that are successful are able to make the difficult decisions so it should be applied to the household as well.
So what's an example of a difficult decision you would say?
So we talked about, like one that is very difficult, I would say, is like learning to show your children trade-offs, so being able to say no to things that are painful to say no in the short term, but are even more painful in the long term to not get right. And I think it's actually more valuable in the long term to show your children how to be a responsible adult with your money and show them trade-offs. So it's not that it needs to be scarcity mindset in like, we can't afford this, but we are actively working towards this goal. So I'm going to delay this expense. So it's not like yes or no, it's showing them what the trade is. Like, hey babe, we're working towards this thing. So we're cutting this temporarily.
I see. It's just the way you even see it yourself. You're not saying, hey, I can't afford this new toy for you. Instead, it's like, hey, instead of this money going into this new toy, how about we save it and have, let's say, this experience in Disneyland for your birthday?
Yeah. And kids are pretty intuitive with that. They'll be like, okay, baby, do you want to spend your $5 Do you want to save it for a bigger thing later? Like teaching them trade-offs.
Yes. And I think that's so important that we need to take the time to do because it's going to, like you said, teach them healthy money habits as they get older.
Yep. So that's one. What's a third? And remind me what the prompt was.
So three things to do as far as oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. Hold on. Three habits, like three things not to do in order to be successful when it comes to finances.
Okay, great. So I would say another one is it is such a hard transition to go from being really tight when you're trying to achieve a goal to then knowing when to spend more and be in that abundance. Some people have the wrong stages. They're like trying to be abundant when they need to be tight.
Yeah.
And then when if they are very frugal and then they can't undo it later. So knowing what stage you're in and knowing what stage of life you're in as well. Another thing with the time management is it's a very difficult shift to say, when you're young, you should be saying yes to a lot of opportunities and just getting experience and getting exposure to different things. And then when you're a little older, you need to be more strategic and start saying no to things strategically to allow time for the higher leverage items. Those transitions, I would say, is the third one, is like knowing what stage you're in and knowing what behaviors are going to serve you the best. So
yeah, because like you said, even sometimes being too frugal is not the best thing for us.
Yeah. So knowing what stage you're in and what tool to use. So sometimes you're like, actually, I'm going to invest in myself now at this stage. Like I'm done with the cutting. Like we've been there, done that. And now it's time to actually invest in high value activities that are going to make my life very enriched.
Awesome. So since we are talking about kind of looking at the big picture and then planning backwards, can you give us an example of the investing piece of it? So now that you get a handle or you have a plan around your debt, what else can you advise us to do with the with our money, like our paycheck? How to divide it up to have your money kind of making money for your.
Yeah, so one of the things that I love about having both like the business exposure as well as the creative side is that I get to see so many different lifestyles in there. And I think that they're all valid and they're beautiful. So I love this exercise of like, what are your values? What are you trying to achieve in life? And really dreaming. And, what is it that you want to achieve in your life? So like starting with some sort of values exercise. And then
it's crazy that you say that because you think that everybody should do this, that have done this. But there are a lot of people that have never even sat down and thought about it in detail. They just assume they know what they want. But when you really sit down and do the exercise and ask yourself all these questions, like, okay, what are my actual values? What do I actually want out of life? Then you start getting specific. Because I think unless you sit down and do that exercise, you're not going to really have a clear direction of where you're going. And a lot of times we have an idea in our heads, but when we start writing, we're like, hold on, what am I? What is it actually? It's not as clear. And then no wonder we're not headed to that direction, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So starting with the
First, start there.
Start there. Where are you trying to go? And when, like on what timeline as well. So I start with SMART goals, do a values exercise, really try to get to what are you trying to achieve in life? So going through that exercise.
If I were to ask you that, sorry to cut you off, but I think it'd be interesting. If I were to ask you that question, what are your personal values and where are you trying to go currently?
Yeah, so I've looked at this over the last few years pretty deeply, and my answer is I really want to live in alignment with my values of I started this business because I love serving others. So that's one piece that I think has to be there. And so started with the coaching business for that reason. And then the other side is I would love to have art and beauty and music in my life. So if, like I said before, if I have the relationships and then I have these two pieces where my life is has beauty in it, the music piece, and then also is in commitment to serving others. To me, that's a beautiful life.
Yes, and you feel complete in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Okay, sorry. Going back to the question of what else can we have our money do for us besides cutting, budgeting, paying off debt? when we're looking at the big picture?
Yeah, so starting with that values exercise, then starting to plan some fun things around that. So when I ask my husband this, he's historically been very frugal and I've been encouraging him. He's done hard work for the past 20 years. I've been like, "Hey, you can spend money now. Like what is
Like,
it you
it's
want to
okay.
do?" So that's like a new muscle for him that I've been poking him to spend more dollars on. So he loves being out in nature. Like I said, he's a big outdoor enthusiast. So I'm like, he's doing a big trip planning around spending, few $1,000s on like a hunting trip, for example. That then it's like, what experiences are going to make your life's memory very rich, and like how can we start planning for those items? So experiences, or if you want to provide for your children, often those are things that can be planned over a long period of time. Do you want to put them in private high school? Do you want to be able to help them
Aligning
with
it with
college?
your values that you just kind of clarified.
Yes, exactly. So, like, what are those bigger life milestones or rich experiences that you want to save for? Or is it a, lifestyle design kind of thing? So, like in my case, how do I invest, in building this business where I can be in alignment with my values of serving others?
Because I think that also makes us kind of at ease to see, okay, this is the amount of money I have after planning, and these are my values, and it's okay. It's okay to spend it on X, Y, and Z as long as it aligns with my values. It's very easy and clear to follow compared to saying, okay, well, should I feel guilty? Like, should I do this? Should I not? I think it's really nice that you put it that way, because it just puts everything in perspective of, okay, it's okay to spend, but make sure that you're spending the money you have for the things that you actually want to do.
Right, exactly. Yeah, some people just have big payments, like big, huge car payment. And when I ask them, are you a car person? They're like, actually, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you spending $50,000 on that when you
Yeah.
told me you love traveling? Like maybe that should go there instead?
Yeah, it's the obvious things that I think we don't oversee in our lives. If you were to sit and ask these questions, something we're like, yeah, no, I actually don't care to live in a multi-million-dollar home. Like, I just want to have the freedom to go hiking every morning, for example.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, I find that they don't have enough of an idea of what that is that they want. And it also informs what they don't want and what they don't need to be spending money on.
Yeah.
And then those are easy trades to make.
That's great. Honestly, I love that exercise because it also helps people to be real with themselves of what's worth it and what's not worth it.
And then I love like a self-reflection activity as well. So there's some things that I think we just are programmed to want, like, okay, I want the nice clothes, I want the nice purse.
Yes, we all fall for that, and that really upsets me these days. Yes, we are programmed to want certain things, but when you do think about it, you're like, no, I don't really care for about
Yeah.
this.
So it's like, okay, I bought that one time and I didn't use it and it's sitting collecting dust in my cabinet, my closet. So it's like, did it give me the fulfillment that was, the amount of dollars I spent on it? So I think being self-reflective is very helpful too.
Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff that we see either celebrities wearing, doing, or whatever's advertised to us on the media, we end up subconsciously falling for those wants and needs. But in reality, we don't really need those or want those if it doesn't align with our values. So I think it's really tricky these days to just stop and pause and think, okay, is this goal, even this goal or this value that I have, is it true to who I am, or is it just programmed that I should want it?
Right,
Because that's what
exactly.
I keep on seeing on Instagram, for example.
Exactly. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for kind of putting that into perspective and giving our listeners kind of a nudge to replan and rethink about what values they have and where to spend their extra money after doing their budgeting. How about as far as investing, as in making your money make more money for you, not necessarily investing in the activities or the time and all in yourself that aligns with your values? How about, let's say my value is I have this, and this is your personal opinion. I know everybody has a different opinion, but let's say I have extra $300 a month left over. Then I'm like, okay, well, I want to invest this. Should I invest it in stocks? Should I don't know, do like a pension plan? Like, where should I put it? Where should I put this extra $300? What are your personal thoughts or experience with working, coaching people as far as money planning?
Yeah, so that definitely depends on where they are in their financial journey and what goals they have, what lifestyle they want. But the way that I look at it, sort of order of operations, is do they have savings? Like in case of an emergency, do they have an emergency fund? So that would be the first priority, would be open up a high yield savings account that will earn interest. So sometimes people have their money sitting in a regular savings account and it's earning like 0.02, it's earning like 2 cents a month. And I'm like, oh my gosh, just move that over to this account right like today. So that's like very easy, and
So
it's
shop
liquid.
around for a high yield savings account. That would be the first thing.
That would be the
Have
first
a little
thing.
bit of a cushion. And about how much do you think in today's world or for your lifestyle? Because I know on average in the past, it's always been 3 to 6 months of your expense. Like, make sure you have that cushion. Is that still realistic in today's world? Or what do you recommend your customers do as far as a savings account goes?
Yeah, so it's going to depend on their circumstance. Are they a double income family? Is one of their jobs kind of tenuous? Like, what industry do they work in? Are they a little worried about the economy? So I'll listen to what they say to me. So if they're like, no, I think we're good, then 3 months could be sufficient, 3 months of expenses. I would say 6 months is like the standard knowledge. And certainly if you have only one income, you'll want that. If you're trying to make something happen, or if there's a lot of uncertainty, I would go even 12 months. If you're trying to make some big transitions, for example.
Yeah.
Frankly, in my family, my husband is Army, and so I'm a military spouse. We have to move frequently. There's a lot of uncertainty and change that happens with that. I started a new business, like I would love to invest in that. So we do have quite a bit of cash in our emergency fund because there's just a lot of transition. So
Yeah. So
if
you don't
people are
trust
trying to
out if something all of a sudden changes.
I mean, yeah. So if something changes, then we just feel very secure. So often, sometimes too, like it doesn't have to be just the traditional wisdom. If someone is they just want to feel super secure, that can even be a reason to do it, just so that they don't have to worry about it.
I see. Just to have the peace of mind to
Just have
focus
peace
on
of
something
mind.
else. Yeah. Because some of the financial advisors would say, that money is being wasted just sitting there. Like, it's better to pay off your debt so it's not accruing interest, or it's better to invest it so it makes money for you. So your personal thoughts on that would be mainly, okay, do what's going to give you the peace of mind to not worry about your life, basically.
Well, there is an order. So once you have a basic emergency fund, of course, so if you have high interest debt, for sure pay that off, right? Because if you're earning something like 7 to 10% in the market and you are being charged anywhere from 20 to 40% interest, depending on some of these, I've seen credit cards, I've seen consumer debt, like some of these like store credit cards, my God, I've seen up to 40%. So I'm like, that is going to be your highest return. Just stop bleeding that money, right? Like, for sure, if they have high interest debt, that should be the priority. But then once they're out of debt, like, yeah, go ahead and have a beefy emergency fund if you feel like you need it. Like, that's okay with me. And then beyond that, like I said, my book is Making Money is Simple. I really try to have a simple approach because I feel like, one, if you don't understand what's happening with your money, that's not good. And then two, if you can't change things because you don't even understand what's going on, that's also not good. And I want to empower people to be able to make financial decisions in their lives. The financial coaching is a point in time where I'm helping people go from A to B, and I want them to be able to move forward with their
Reach
lives.
that goal.
Yeah. So beyond the savings and the debt, then investing, I do like total market index funds. So total stock, total bond. And I just keep it really simple and do that with the stock market stuff. And then I have some stock options. So the guidance there that I've heard is no more than 5% of your total portfolio in like single stock. So if you want to invest in some companies that you really believe in, it should be diversified. It shouldn't be like a huge portion of your portfolio.
Yeah, and that's a whole other topic and
Yes. Yeah,
an
exactly. I
interview.
like
But
to keep
just
it simple.
personally, yeah, just to simplify to put things in, a little bit of a planning perspective for our
Yes.
listeners. Things to
Yeah.
consider.
Yes. And then there's two other ones. So I invest in real estate as well. So we have some rental real estate and I invest in my business. So I'd say that's a fifth area.
Like monthly, you have amounts going into these areas of investment for yourself. That's beautiful. Awesome. Now we are running short on time. So I do want to close off by asking you your last words of wisdom for our listeners. And if you can go back and do it all over again. So for you specifically, let's go back to college. Would you still do a dual major or will you pick one thing and focus on that more? Let's close off with that advice.
Yeah, gosh. So I think the advice I would give myself in my 20s is I don't regret the path that I took. I think that it would have been something unexplored if I hadn't done it that way. But I would tell myself to take a lot more risk. I think there were just so many things that I was fear driven and I didn't want to look like a failure or feel like a failure. So there were opportunities I didn't pursue because I was counting myself out. And so I would say to just take calculated risk.
Especially if you have the nudge for it, go for it. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, please tell our listeners where can they purchase your book, where can they find you or more information and connect with you, and we'll close off with that.
That's great. So my book is in print and Kindle as well on Amazon. So they can buy it off of that store. And then my website is makingmoneyissimple.com. And then you can find me on social media at makingmoneyissimple.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again, Veronica, for your time and your advice and your wisdom. And until next time, thank you to our listeners for tuning in, and we'll connect with you all over the social media as well. So make sure to give her a follow, give us comments, ask questions. If any of the topics that it triggered any additional questions, we'd love to chime in and have that conversation on the social platforms. But again, thank you, Veronica. Thank you to our listeners. Until next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Please rate and review this podcast. Follow and engage with us on social media under the Yegi Project. And if you're interested in being a guest, email info@theyegiproject.com. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.